right. I was just saying, you guys got a fireside for the price of a panel, so congrats. Right, let's get started. I mean, DYORs do your own research, right? Just in case anyone was confused. The Masterclass bit, I think, is a bit intimidating. I'll let Vijay take care of that part. But Vijay,
I was hoping you'll take some of the burden as well.
So you're part of VCRED.
Yep.
And VCRED, I think, has successfully combined the two biggest buzzwords in technology into one, right? Artificial intelligence and Web3. Yeah. So why don't you tell us how the two things work together?
So, I mean, AI is probably the buzzword right now, but we have been in this field for like several years, and essentially the inflection point has reached on AI, and it's just about to take off with all the data, what we can consume and make predictions. The three part, everyone is familiar, like, with the need for decentralization and how things have to evolve. So it's a natural progression for us to combine the two and build what could be the most amazing protocol.
So you use machine learning to create some indicators that then help your users market make with certain pairs. Is that right?
Exactly. And since it's a do your own research masterclass, so maybe I'll dig a little bit deeper into how to make sense of data. So as a retail user, for example, like, or as any user, like when you go have a look at, let's say, a stock, like, Amazon, for example, you have publicly available information. It just tells you, like, this is stock price, this is what I'm going to do. I have some P&E data, and I have some, dividends, what is happening, how is Jeff Bezos, what is he doing, all that. With all that information, you can make some sort of a prediction. But when it comes to Web3, this is incredibly intimidating, because what you have is not just this data, but you also have other asymmetric sources. For example, something with token unlocks happening, or suddenly this particular token is being correlated with that token. This is the ecosystem. This is what is happening in this ecosystem. Something completely unrelated. An Oracle had a failure, so you have like a completely different price feed. So you have all this diverse sources, unreliable sources, and also sources which are time lagged or delayed. And you'd have to make sense of all of that. So that's the intimidating part of Web3 in general. And so what you have to do is both have a look at long-term data and also short-term data, make sense of that, be aligned with your incentives. So maybe you want to be just a short-term trader. You just want to take advantage of, a token being launched and, just take profit. Or maybe you have a long-term conviction on what is about to happen. So you'll have to make appropriate use case based on what your goals are, and then look at that. Whereas what you get probably from public sources is just, generalized, because the people providing that information, they do not know your goals, your motivations, and your thoughts. So they'll just provide you like, a generalized set of data, and you'll have to make sense of that. So that's where, our motivation for building VCRED was also like, making sense of this data, providing like the risk-reward parameters for users. But in general, for you as an investor, that's what I would recommend. Like, have a clear sense of your own incentives aligned first, and then go through with that and make sense of the data.
Can you give us a sense of, like right now in VCRED, for example, which pairs have the most volume, and then also like what are the data sources that you're pulling for those pairs?
Yep. So I don't want to go into specifics of particular pairs and so on, just to be clear. But in general, what we use is, for example, we use both from centralized exchanges. That's very easily available. You can use like scrape it off an API, and also in parallel, we look at the actual blockchain data. We look at, for example, exchanges which are out there like DYDX or other decentralized exchanges, or within, for example, like what is happening in TradeRegio, for example, like maybe a lot of assets are getting staked here. Have a look at all that information, piece that together, and arrive at a prediction.
And if you're a retail trader, you're interested in investing in a particular token, maybe even for the long term, but you need some conviction, right, to make that decision. How do you advise people to get started? I mean, obviously using VCRED is one way, but what else can people do to sort of start that research process or develop a research framework?
So I would say the first step is be clear on your goals. Because what I see a lot of people do, this just like, again, like not financial advice, it's just a personal experience. What I've seen people do is like, they see some influencer hyping up a token, they go there and then they put some money in, and then the token price crashes. And then after that, they are like, oh my God, I don't like this. And then they just leave. Whereas you should have like a more clear plan, even before you go in, even before you click that buy button, what's my goal with this particular thing? Like, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to make money over a certain period of time, or am I trying to make money over like very short period of time? So regardless of what token you put the money into, right? Like even Bitcoin, for example, if you had bought it at like say $29,000 and then it had crashed the next year to 27, you will say like Bitcoin is shitcoin, you know? So by the same token, like there are a lot of people who made the conviction trade, like, you know, at the start of the year, like a lot of people bought it at 19,000 or 18,000, the BTC price when it was low, because they truly believed that regardless of whatever macro factors happen, BTC is a hedge, and they are doing well right now. So the first step is on you. I'm sorry, I don't have a magic bullet, but that's the best way to go about it. Like the first step is on you. Be very clear with what your goals are, what you want to do over a 3-month period or a 6-month period. Make an Excel table, like say like these are the price points at which I want to exit, these are the price points which I want to enter. And once you have that framework, then you proceed with the research.
So on the research side, you know, you talked about on-chain indicators, off-chain indicators, and then also like data from centralized exchanges and elsewhere. So what are some, you know, indicators that you think apply in general, you know, when analyzing a particular token?
So a standard set of indicators is momentum indicators. So if you see a lot of people buying, the herd mentality, I would say, herd always, you know, the stampede of the bulls or the stampede of the bears. So you have to follow that, even if they are following like a, you know, a wrong pattern. You still have to take that into account. So that'll be like one very good indicator. A second indicator is also to see like some of these major tokens, right? They would be correlated with some degree with, say, macro indicators. So try to have a look at what is happening. There was even like some people are actually trading based on, you know, Dogecoin based on how Elon Musk was tweeting. So you could actually use ChatGPT to build like a simple Twitter bot and then just, you know, correlation trade it. And that was also quite successful actually, because as soon as Elon Musk put that, then you had like, you know, a sudden jump in price and then you can just buy and sell. But in terms of long term, actually, you could just go through a set of data, and based on that data, like what you get from other reputable sources, use that as an indicator to trade as well. Yeah.
I realized I didn't introduce myself. So I'm a longtime journalist in the space. I was one of the first reporters at CoinDesk back in 2013. And I started ACJR.network, which is an association for researchers and journalists in the industry. So we're a nonprofit body. We have 1,200 people in our Telegram group. Every reporter and editor who covers the space is in there. And so that's my long preamble to asking you, how much does a media diet, or like, you know, what kinds of news or media do you consume as an investor? Do you have a framework for analyzing that, figuring out, I don't know, even what Twitter accounts to follow and things like that?
Yeah, me personally or in general?
Well, tell us your personal secret sauce.
So my personal secret sauce is simple. Like I actually tune out from all the macro influencers, so to speak, because they are generally following the signal. So it's more like a massive lag. I actually look at you know, the major developers or like people who are actually building out the protocol. I try to find out what they are trying to do, or like, you know, for example, if something is happening with, let's say with Avalanche, for example, like I look at people who are actually the projects which are building on that, how they are doing that, and then use that information to make my decisions. Like I do not look at actually, like for example, this particular XYZ influencer who has like say 10 million followers tweeted this, so I should go and buy that. I don't do that.
Yeah, there was a weird incident, I don't know if you guys remember it, where CoinDesk, and this is long after I left, CoinDesk said that they had been hacked. And you know, there was actually someone in their CMS system looking at their posts before they were published. Mm-hmm. And the reason why that I think matters is because they get a lot of embargoed information, right? So they might get an embargo that says, oh, this project is going to launch something on Monday, and it's sitting in the system on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I don't exactly remember if there was analysis that people traded on that, but I think that's an example of that kind of getting an edge through this kind of information asymmetry.
Yes, exactly. And also this problem is going to get exacerbated with, with the GPT-4, like the new clients, what you can build. So you can actually design news which looks real, but actually it's not real. And you can tweet it, and if enough people have read that news, then they would have made a trade which is not correct. So that's why a diversity of sources is really important. Not just relying on one specific source and making your decisions based on that.
Also, if you guys have any questions, here we go, right away. All right. I don't think there's a mic, so you have to shout it out.
It's okay. Thank you so much for your feedback, and I think you just started touching on it. I am curious to see how you evaluate what's being built on Avalanche, for example, as a blockchain network. How does this come into your, let's say, due diligence? Are you looking at gaming? How many developments are happening in the gaming space, DeFi space, SocialFi, NFT, etc.? Could you speak more to those? How do you evaluate all of that? Because Avalanche is amazingly fast, blazingly fast, very solid. But I think it's important to look at the activities, right? Development happening. How do you balance all that information?
So, yeah.
Can you repeat the question, just in case people didn't hear?
Yeah, so the question was, how do you take into account all the information, for example, which is happening in Avalanche, like GameFi, DeFi, all of that, developer activity, do you amalgamate all that information to make an investment decision? Rephrase it, okay, good. Yeah, that's actually very good. Like I was saying before, the diversity of sources, you need to consider that. And this is something which is different in terms of whether, like I was going back before, whether you're making a long-term investment decision or a short-term one. So if you're making a short-term one, probably those factors don't matter that much. But when you're making a long-term one, say 1 year, 2 year, or 3 years, then they make a really big impact. And then you have your own set of, an Excel table with a list of factors, weight it, and then use that to make your trade and ignore the short-term noise. Yeah.
Any more questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
Yeah, please. That would be great.
Yo. So this is not really a question, but it's just a +1 what you guys are saying on stage. So one thing that always helps me out whenever I'm looking at particularly long-term investments, by the way, it's not financial advice, blah, 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 you already know. But usually what I do is govern where to look based off of core principles, does this help with self-sovereignty? Does it help with decentralization, scalability to create bumpers? And then from there, I always personally take, what is your end utopia for crypto Web3, for instance? I think it's going to be interoperable country to country, blah, blah, you just name it. And what helped me out, which has been the key for this for so many years, is just reverse engineer how that could possibly happen. And then that helps really clarify your vision on where to look forward to based off of the tooling and skills that you said for extra things what's the community engagement, what's being built to help hedge all your bets in that. So yeah, just wanted to +1 what you guys said because it was amazing.
So how much of attention are you guys putting on a team? So is it 5% of your decision or 95% of your decision?
Sorry, how much was that?
How much of your attention you're putting on a team of the project? Is it 5%, 95%, or
So I would say it depends on what kind of a project. Some projects are, for example, very highly developer driven, so you need to get some, but it's very difficult actually to get that feedback because how do you evaluate a person just based on some information what you see socially available, right? You don't know is he a really good guy, or is he a rug puller, or is he, what is it? So you will have to dig through that, find out what it is, and maybe I would say the founder of a project and also the the top level, you should focus on that and try to get some information and use that. It should be a big factor, definitely, depending on the project. Yeah.
I would add to that, on the journalist side, I think the challenge is, you get a pitch, right, from a project, and then it'll say, oh, we're going to do this and that, and here's the team. And the project isn't live yet, but you have to make a decision on whether you're going to proceed and interview them and write a story or not. And I think in those cases, the team actually ends up becoming a very strong, probably a 90% proxy for like whether you cover them. So like if they say, oh, we have like an MIT, or we have a Cornell professor, who's launching this new L1 that's really quick. It's called Avalanche. You might cover that. You can say, oh, this guy's from Cornell, right? But I think that's really susceptible to this kind of reputation attacks, because then you have people like Craig Wright, for example, who kind of makes similar claims, right? Oh, I'm an academic and I have 3 degrees and so on, and therefore also gets the same kind of coverage. So, I think it's an imperfect proxy, but if you see coverage coming out about a particular founding team or project, that's probably the calculation that went into it. It's like, oh, they have very credible, founders. But, you can definitely end up with the negative result, even though you have credible founders.
Just want to ask, like, in terms of from VC's point of view, it seems to me that there are some VCs who are a lot more successful than others. Like from your point of view, is there any secret sauce to that? Even though everybody look at the same data, everybody look at the same some of the metrics, but if you look at it, some VCs do have a much better track record, and I just want to get your view on why is that?
Yeah, the VC side.
Yeah. So in general, I would say from my side, like just from like, when you're trying to like invest in a token or something, there's always an element of luck. So that's like, you can have all the factors ready, but in the end, like, the timing part of it is still luck. Like, for example, like if you invest in a certain token at, say, at a certain point of time, 2 years back, maybe they were at a very early stage, but then later on, they are at an inflection point. So that's one factor. The second factor is also like how you are directional in the trades, like how you make like, specific trades for over a period of time, how much time you stay in the market. So all those factors, they all add up.
More questions? I want to ask you something about the way VCRED is set up. So it's set up for momentum trading, right?
Yeah.
Why did you pick momentum
No,
trading?
it's just as an example because that's the most easiest signal to trade on. And that's also something which is giving like a lot of insight where like, okay, based on this, I can just do short or long. There are, of course, a lot more signals which are out there, which are, which you can use to probably trade. But like I said, you have to use a combination of those signals. And what I would advise is like, it's something similar to poker, for example. Like you play a lot of hands, then you bleed out a lot more in your cash or capital, and also you lose a lot more money on your brain power. So instead of over trading, actually you should make like a smaller number of decisive trades, which make a big impact. Like, in poker, for example, if you play like, aces or kings or something like that against someone else who is playing like, 9 deuce offsuit, obviously you're gonna maximize your chance of winning. So that would be my advice, yeah.
And a follow-up on that, how do you deal with qualitative data sources? So like, obviously there's price feeds, there's volume and so on, but what about qualitative stuff like, the quality of discussion around a particular Ethereum request for comment, or, whether there's actual debates in a particular project's governance forum and things like that?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So I would say a little bit more research on what exactly they're doing. For example, right, I've seen like some people call themselves a project, but then when you actually ask them what's the full form of GPT, they don't even know that. So digging a little bit deeper always helps, like ask the basic questions, like are they able to even answer those questions? Do they get past that filter? And then, then you have like a much better view.
Is that captured in your current, in VCRED? Are those signals captured or represented?
Yeah, to a certain extent, yes, but we are still improving, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I think we're almost at time, unless there's a last minute question from the audience. No? All right,
Yeah,
here we
great.
go.
What are your thoughts about good-looking projects but with an anonymous team?
Good-looking projects, but anonymous team. How do you evaluate?
Oh, how do you evaluate an
That in your research.
Oh, in an anonymous team, yes, I know. That's a bit of a delicate question in the sense like, how do you evaluate? Because some people may be anonymous simply due to some government restrictions, but some teams are anonymous because they are not trustworthy. So it's very difficult to differentiate between the two. So it's more on a project basis, yeah.
I think you can use social media buzz as a proxy, but again, not the best way to do it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like if it's a cool idea, it's anonymous, and everyone's tweeting about it, then you might want to take a look at it.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're done.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks so much, Vijay, for the
Thank you.
masterclass. And thanks to all of you.